The Giro d'Italia is an annual stage race bicycle race primarily held in Italy, while also occasionally passing through nearby countries. The race was first organized in 1909 to increase sales of the newspaper La Gazzetta dello Sport. However, it is currently run by RCS Sport. The race has been held annually since its first edition in 1909, except when it was stopped for the two world wars. As the Giro gained prominence and popularity, the race was lengthened, and the peloton expanded from primarily Italian participation to riders from all over the world. The Giro is a UCI World Tour event, which means that the teams that compete in the race are mostly UCI Pro teams, with the exception of the teams that the organizers can invite. Along with the Tour de France and Vuelta a España, the Giro makes up cycling's prestigious three-week-long Grand Tours. The Giro is usually held during late May and early June. While the route changes each year, the format of the race stays the same, with the appearance of at least two time trials, and a passage through the mountains of the Alps, including the Dolomites. Like the other Grand Tours, the modern editions of the Giro d'Italia normally consist of 21-day-long segments over a 23-day period that includes 2 rest days. All of the stages are timed to the finish. After finishing, the riders' times are compounded with their previous stage times. The rider with the lowest aggregate time is the leader of the race and gets to don the coveted pink jersey. While the general classification gathers the most attention, there are other contests held within the Giro. The points classification for the sprinters, the mountains classification for the climbers, young rider classification for the riders under the age of 25, and the team classification for the competing teams. Spanish rider Alberto Contador was the victor in the 2015 edition of the race. History. The idea of holding a bicycle race that navigated around Italy was first suggested when La Gazzetta dello Sport editor Tullio Morgagna sent a telegram to both the paper's owner, Emilio Costamagna, and cycling editor, Armando Cugnat, stating the need for an Italian tour. At the time, La Gazzetta's rival, Corriere della Sera, was planning on holding a bicycle race of its own, after the success they had gained from holding an automobile race. Morgagna then decided to try and hold their race before Corriere della Sera could hold theirs, but La Gazzetta lacked the money. However, after the success La Gazzetta had with creating the Giro di Lombardia and Milan-San Remo, the owner Costamagna decided to go through with the idea. Their bike race was announced on August 7, 1908 in the first page of that day's edition of La Gazzetta dello Sport. The race was to be held in May of 1909. The idea of the race was inspired by the Tour de France and the success that laughter had gained from it. Since the organizers lacked the funds, 25,000 lire, needed to hold the race, they consulted Primo Bongrani, an accountant at the Bank Cassa di Risparmio, disambiguation needed, and friend of the three organizers. Bongrani proceeded to go around Italy asking for donations to help hold the race. Bongrani's efforts were largely successful. He had procured enough money to cover the operating costs. The money that was to be given out as prizes came from a casino in San Remo after Francesco Ciala, a former Gazzetta employee, encouraged it to contribute to the race. Even Corriere, La Gazzetta's rival, gave 3,000 lire to the race's fund. On 13 May 1909 at 2:53 am 127 riders started the first Giro d'Italia at Loretta Place in Milan. The race was split into 8 stages covering 2,448 kilometers. A total of 49 riders finished, with Italian Luigi Ganna winning. Ganna won 3 individual stages and the general classification. Ganna received 5,325 lire as a winner's prize, with the last rider in the general classification receiving 300 lire. The Giro's director received only 150 lire a month, 150 lire fewer than the last-placed rider. The first Giro was won by Luigi Ganna, while Carlo Galletti won the 2 following Giros. In 1912, there was no individual classification. Instead, there was only a team classification, which was won by Team Italia. The 1912 Giro is the only time the competition has not had an individual classification. From 1914 onwards, the scoring format was changed from a points-based system to a time-based system, in which the cyclist who had the lowest aggregate time at the end of the race would win. The Giro was suspended for 4 years from 1915 to 1918, due to the First World War. Costante Girardengo was the winner of the first Giro after the war in 1919. The dominant figure in the 1920s was Alfredo Binda, who won his first Giro in 1925 and followed this up with another victory in 1927, in which he won 12 of the 15 stages. Victory in 1929 came courtesy of 8 successive stage wins. At the height of his dominance, Binda was called to the head office of La Gazzetta dello Sport in 1930. The newspaper accused him of ruining the race, and offered him 22,000 lire to be less dominant, which he refused. Binda won 5 Giros before he was usurped as the dominant cyclist by Gino Bartali. Nicknamed the Iron Man of Tuscany for his endurance, Bartali won 2 Giros during the 1930s, in 1936 and 1937. Bartali's dominance was challenged in 1940, the last Giro before the Second World War, when he was defeated by his 20-year-old teammate Fausto Coppa. The rivalry between Bartali and Coppa intensified after the war. Bartali won his last Giro in 1946, with Coppa winning his second the following year. Coppa won a further 3 Giros, and in 1952 he became the first cyclist to win the Tour de France and Giro in the same year. Swiss Hugo Koblet became the first non-Italian to win the race in 1950. No one dominated the Tour during the 1950s. Coppa, Charlie Gall and Fiorenzo Magni each won 2 Giros during the decade. The 1960s were similar. 5-time Tour de France winner Jacques Anquetil won in 1960 and 1964, while Franco Barmamian won 2 successive Giros in 1962 and 1963. Belgian Eddy Merckx was the dominant figure during the 1970s. His first victory came in 1968. Another triumph in 1970 was followed by 3 successive victories from 1972 to 1974, which is the record for the most successive victories in the Giro. Felice Gimondi was victorious in 1976, winning his 3rd Giro. Belgians Michel Polentier and Johan de Muink won the 2 subsequent Giros in 1977 and 1978. In 1980, Frenchman Bernard Hinault, who up to this point had won 2 Tours de France, became France's first winner since Anquetil in 1964. He would win another 2 Giros in 1982 and 1985. Stephen Roche was victorious in 1987, a year in which he also won the Tour and the UCI Road World Championship. American Andy Hampsten became the first non-European winner the following year, and Laurent Fignon was victorious in 1989. Spaniard Miguel Indurain, winner of 5 Tours, won successive Giros in 1991 and 1992. 3-time winner of the Vuelta a España, Tony Rominger was victorious in 1995, defeating the previous winner Evgeny Berzin. Marco Pantani was the winner in 1998, a year in which he completed the Tour and Giro double. Ivan Gotti won the previous Giro in 1997 and the subsequent one in 1999. Stefano Gazzoli won the Giro in 2000. Gilberto Simoni was the winner in 2001 and 2003, with Paolo Savoldelli victorious in 2002. Simoni was denied a 3rd victory in 2004, when he was beaten by teammate Damiano Cunego. Salvodelli won his 2nd Giro in 2005, beating Simoni by 28 seconds. Ivan Basso was the victor in 2006. Danilo Di Luca won in 2007, though the Tour was marred by doping allegations. Spaniard Alberto Contador of Astana was the winner in 2008. The following year he raced in the Tour de France instead, and Denis Menchev was the Giro victor. Basso returned after a doping suspension to regain his title in 2010. Contador was the victor at the podium ceremony in Milan, but he was later stripped of the title after he was found guilty of doping in the 2010 Tour de France. Runner-up Michel Scarponi was awarded the victory. Rider Hesse Adel became the first Canadian to win the Giro in 2012, beating Joaquim Rodriguez by 16 seconds. After gaining the lead after the 8th stage, Vincenzo Nibali won 2 more stages to help consolidate his lead and win the 2013 edition.